This video is a recording from the MenProvement Podcast, brought to you by MenProvement.com, the #1 self-improvement resource strictly for men. Go there today to see all podcasts, improve yourself as a man, and get access to 3 free ebooks, including one that will help you triple your testosterone naturally. Thank you and enjoy.
Ready to take your life to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Get all the information you need to be better, improve everything, and live life like a pro. This is the MenProvement Podcast with Sean Russell.
Welcome back to the MenProvement Podcast, brought to you by MenProvement.com, the #1 self-improvement resource strictly for men. Head there after the show to get your free self-improvement starter kit, including your free ebook on how to triple your testosterone naturally. I'm your host, Sean Russell, and today I have an epic show for you. I think it's safe to say that a fantasy of most single men is to be with a hot cougar, whether it be that older woman you work with, one of your friends' hot mom, or one of your mom's friends who came over to drop something off, but mommy's not home. Well, today I have on the show just that. A hot 62-year-old cougar who's going to show you how you can make your fantasies come true. Katherine Behan is an accidental cougar who now teaches men the art of seduction, specifically when it comes to older women. And in this episode, she absolutely kills it, and you're going to love it. Before we jump into it, I just want to say thank you for all the support and look forward to an even better podcast in the new year. I'm going to step up this podcast a notch and hit the best guests around with the best topics to help you be the best. I've got some great interviews coming up, including Sasha Cobra, one of the most prolific sexual and spiritual teachers, and she's going to teach you how to be the guy that all the women talk about when other guys aren't around, because you'll be the best sex in town. We've also got stuff on travel, finance, and much more coming. And if you want a topic covered, tweet us at MenProvement or email me at sean@menprovement.com. I'll make it happen. And if you want to make sure you hear all this great stuff, download the podcast app on your phone and search MenProvement, subscribe in iTunes, and you'll get free updates every week and when every new episode comes out. And after you're done with that, check out our sponsor, ownonly.com, and grab yourself a custom suit fit to your body for only $300. Most custom suits are around $800, and that's after a trip to the tailor. And tailoring your own suit from Macy's is an additional $100 to $200 on top of what you spent. But if you go to ownonly.com, you can get a custom suit sent to your doorstep without ever leaving the house for only $300. It's crazy, it's easy, and the quality is quality. Check them out at ownonly.com. That's OWNONLY.com and use the coupon code MPSUIT to get $30 off your order above $200. But without further ado, I know you're excited, so let's jump into today's show. How to meet a cougar and make her purr with Katherine Behan. Hey guys, I'm here with Katherine Behan. She's an author, coach, and owner of Cougar Cub Academy, and I just connected with her because she wanted to start writing for MenProvement.com. She's a self-proclaimed accidental cougar who now coaches young men in the art of seduction. How are you, Katherine? Thanks so much for coming on the show.
I'm great, Sean. It's nice to meet you too. And I can tell by your voice that you are indeed a younger. May I ask how old you are?
Yeah, I'm actually 25. I'm a prime cub.
Well, it's nice to meet you. I am every bit of 62. And I did send you a picture that you probably don't think is the real me.
No, I did. You're a very attractive 62-year-old, I must say.
Thanks a lot. I'm just so passionate about being able to connect consenting adults. You know, I'm not here about anything other than connecting consenting adults. And if it's okay with you, I'd just like to tell a little story and just kind of set the stage for how I got here.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that because I'd love to know how you became, an accidental cougar per se.
Absolutely. Well, once upon a time, because women are in love with fantasy, but this is a true story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who grew up in a large Catholic family, And she was the oldest and had 7 younger brothers. So she was always very comfortable with men and understood a lot about the competitive nature and sometimes the confusing behavior of the male. She grew up with goals to get married and have a family because that's what everyone did. And she did that. Unfortunately, though, by the time her first marriage got to the point where the children went to college, there was nothing left between the husband and wife. And so she moved on, and she moved all the way across country and started a brand new life somewhere and met a second man. And this man swept into her life and seemed like a grand provider and a lover and was affectionate and kind and everything that she was missing from her first relationship. But lo and behold, after a couple of years, that also passed and faded. And it turned out that that man was not who she hoped he would be. And so a second divorce followed. And as you can start to tell, this little girl is me grown up. But at the end of the day, once I had gotten away from that second man and was starting life on my own, I had made a decision that I did not want to be in a relationship. Didn't even think about dating. And lo and behold, a young man came across my path, quite a bit younger than me. And he started to flirt with me, and I was kind of blind to it. I didn't believe it. He was way too young, and yet he was fascinating to me. And we're going to get to talking more about this, Sean, because he was very smart, and he and I are still involved. We have a physical only friends with benefits relationship that is working for both of us. And I want to tell you, 50 years ago, when I was a teenager, I know it's a long time ago, I never thought that was possible. The idea that, in fact, I can tell you that the words sex and fun were never used in the same sentence any time in my life throughout until now and at my age, where I am having fun with sex and with this young man who really, he's only 17 years younger than me. That makes him 45.
I thought you were going to say he was 17 for a second. I was like, oh, nice.
He's, and I do attract a lot of Cubs, in their 20s and 30s. But 40s are my favorite decade. I can talk about that later too, and how a Cub can pick a suitable Cougar. But what I really wanted to explore was the idea of sex for pleasure. And yes, sex in a relationship with a forever after person, if it's, that's awesome. But what I've discovered is that there's a whole world of sexual pleasure outside of committed relationships. And that's a bit controversial, but it is working for me. So that's how I got myself here.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. And I can see how you never kind of mixed the whole sex with pleasure part growing up Catholic. When was it when you actually had your final divorce?
I've actually been single now the second time. My divorce was final in April, but I've been single since August. So it's just over about a year and a half that I've been single. And really, what I found was once my friend with benefits came into the picture, and Sean, it's so fun. It reminds me of, I've listened to some of your other interviews, and I know you can be frank on these programs, which I appreciate. But it reminds me of having a guy friend that I would maybe go rock climbing with, or whitewater rafting, some kind of physical exercise fun experience. And we have great, fantastic sex, and then it's like, let's go have a beer. And there's no relationship, there's no texting, there's no calling. And there are rules, quote unquote, and I do write about this. There's a difference between a boyfriend and a sex buddy. And it's important that women know that and know how to manage it. But it is very, very doable because I love being single. And I love that he lives in his house. I don't carry a burden for his life responsibilities, his career, his finances. There's no in-laws. We are just really enjoying a lot of, not a lot. That's the problem. Here's what happened. One of the things about a sex buddy is that you must not have sex very often. In fact, the farther apart the sex, the better it is, which is kind of crazy, but it does make sense if you think about it, because absence does make the heart grow fonder. But when my last husband, I was married for 8 years, and he was older than me, and he didn't have much of a sexual appetite. So I really was like dormant. I really didn't understand. I didn't know what was possible. I'm not kidding. And So I want to say that, like, one of the first things, if your young men are listening and they're interested in dating an older woman, chances are that she's been underserved, not aware of what an orgasm is really like. And many times Cubs will think, oh gosh, she's an experienced woman. Yeah. She knows about sex. True. But in my case, I was so shut down because of a kind of an ugly relationship. I had shut myself down and went into dormant. So when this young man helped me find that, and I want to tell you, Sean, the best sex happened in the backseat of my car, making out with our clothes on. I mean, he knew how to go slow, and he knew how to disarm me. So once I began to have the sexual energy come back up through me, and I wish I could describe accurately for you, because having been turned off for many years, when that came alive in me, I felt like it was a fountain of youth. I mean, I felt like I was 17, and I get goosebumps right now telling you about it. It was 17 only better, because A, of all, my father's not going to come around and shoot the guy, and B, of all, I can't get pregnant. So having this sexual freedom and enjoying making out like a part of me when I was 17. And so, and I began to believe that he really liked my body and that he wanted to please me. And the other men in my life, that had not been true. It was all about them. And even for my ex to lose his sexual desire and not have any interest in whether I still wanted to be sexual. I don't blame him, because I chose him. Nobody tied me up and threw me at the altar. But the reality is, at my age right now, I'm so much more open about sex and talking about it than I ever have before.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many incredible points that are running through my head that I would love to pick your brain about. So I'm going to start asking you some questions.
Please.
A couple of things I want to talk about. I'll just go over them all real quick, and then we'll jump into one of them each at a time. The first is, it's a lot of guys' fantasy, I feel like, to be with an older woman like you're describing. I'm sure a lot of people listening are like, wow, this would be incredible. So I want to talk about how to go about, as a younger guy, say 25, how to go about meeting an older woman. And then I want to talk about how you mentioned you had this perfect sex with, just friends with benefits relationship, which I've been in before, but every time I've found that after a while, it starts to get to the point where the girl's kind of asking me, oh, what's going on? Are we going to be something? And it never ends well, for me at least. Mm-hmm. So I definitely want to go over tips you have for guys to maintaining a purely friends with benefits relationship, because that's what a lot of guys want right now. Me as an entrepreneur, it would be almost impossible for me to have a relationship, and I know a lot of people are in the same position. So let's start with the first one. I mean, I've been approaching girls now for 3 to 6 months, off and on, and during my time, I've only actually approached 2 older women, both with pretty good success, like amazing interactions. And I actually love approaching what I call MILFs, because I find they react like so incredibly. And one actually took my number, but nothing ever came of it. Mm-hmm. So for like a 25-year-old guy like me, I guess you'd call me a cub. How would I go about finding an older woman, an older divorcee, to have an incredible sexual relationship like this with?
Well, I hear you, and I love what you said. And actually, I do kind of call the 20-somethings cublets. Okay. And I got that term from a cublet who wrote to me. And a lot of 20-somethings contact me. And for me personally, Sean, 20s are young. Now, there is a woman out there named Cynthia Gallup. She has a website called Make Love Not Porn. And I would really recommend that your listeners take a look at her. She's outstanding. And she has created a website where she has people can submit their videos of real love and real sex. So it's not porn. And her point is that if we were less encumbered by all of the porn out there and looked at real people making love, which is voyeuristically quite exciting, that it's real love. So I'll just pass that over. Maybe you could interview her. That would be awesome. Yeah. But anyway, So what happened for me, Sean, is after I started my relationship with my young man, he's not available very often. And I started researching friends with benefits, and there are definite things you need to do. And one of them is you have to help your woman by being very organized in your approach. It is not a love relationship. So there aren't, you don't hang out, you don't cuddle. Interestingly enough, I mean, you have sex, and it's and certainly, I would love to write a piece for your website on this so I can really detail it. But one of the big things is to realize that this is just a physical exercise between you and the woman. Part of it is in your intention when you're going to go to a website. Now, I do belong to a couple of Cougar Cub dating websites, so I recommend that you go. And Sean, I'm telling you, if you follow my tips, you're going to get a lot of attention. And I'll tell you why. Because the men that are trying to approach me online are making a huge mistake. And I imagine maybe even some of your listeners have. One thing, I'll interrupt myself by saying that there's a difference between a MILF and a GILF and a cougar. I qualify as a GILF right now. I'm actually a grandmother.
Wow,
and
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm going to look at my picture and go, no way. But I have a very young spirit, and luckily I have a little petite body, and I know how to use it at this point. But what happens is I put my profile out there. I do put an honest picture of what my face looks like on the site. And then I just tell what I want in there, which is that I'm not into a one-night hookup. I don't do sex with strangers at all, ever. It's not in my, now some do. But I think when the MILF and GILF stuff is kind of in the past, I mean, the new age look is the cougar, and I think there's a classy cougar. And I think a cougar who wants to have sex one time, I have no problem with that. But as a cub approaching these women, what's happening is that when these guys write me their approach in an email, because it's all email first, they lead sexually. I mean, they lead gross. And if I could be very upfront with you, and I can give you a direct quote, this is a guy, fairly handsome, probably, I think he was 31. And what he wrote to me in my email box was, "My cock is hard and dripping with pre-cum for you, baby." Now, I don't know about you. Maybe men would like that if a woman wrote something like how wet they are on the very first comment.
Yeah,
but what I would say,
would, yeah.
Sean, would you go out on a first date, sit down at the table, buy that girl a cup of coffee, and whip it out and lay it on the table?
Probably not. Not me personally.
Never. Right. And so 99%, and I'm not lying, I delete 99% of cubs trying to approach me. There's nobody out there. Well, last night, actually, I take that back. Last night, a 37-year-old guy was so sweet on the phone. He was texting me, very polite. "I think you're beautiful," he said. I wrote back, "Thank you." He said, "Would you ever date younger?" And I said, "Yes, certainly." And he said, "I'd like the honor of seeing you." Guess what? We're going to go out Friday night. We're having a date. I told him that I'm not in a one-night stand mindset. That's not what I'm looking for. He said that he isn't either, which leads me to the 3 types of cougars that are out there. May I tell you what the 3 types are?
I would love to hear it, yes.
Okay. There's cougar number 1, the rookie cougar. Now, the rookie cougar, Sean, you have to really be aware that while there are cougars like myself right now, very experienced, I understand what it's like to be aroused. I understand what it's like to control my orgasm and know where it goes and how to include a man in it. So I'm there. But I wasn't there a year ago. I was a rookie cougar. And the rookies are scared, excited. The idea that a young man like your age would be interested in me, so flattering. I mean, it's a little hard for me to believe when the 20-somethings claim that they are. However, I don't close the door because anything's possible. But generally speaking, a rookie cougar is going to be anxious. Chances are she's been hurt by men. Chances are she's had some sexual bullies in her life. And so she's extremely careful. If she's divorced, the guy might have been a real jerk. And so she's suspicious of every man. So that's one thing to find out when you're doing your communications, how long she's been dating younger. If it's brand new, it will really help you. There's a super secret here that always works, Sean. May I tell it to you?
Yes, please.
Pretend it's her first time. If you put in your mind that your woman is a virgin, even if she's 40, and you don't treat her disrespectfully about that, but you just approach her like she really was experiencing sex for the first time, you will endear yourself to her. We love to be cared for and cared about. And so when and that's why the agenda is so important too, especially for when you're approaching your cougars. If your agenda is, I want to learn how to please a woman, I want to have a woman experience an orgasm because of what I do, and that's 100% of your motivation, great. If your motivation is to get laid and get off and have your own sexual experience, regardless if she comes or not, that's okay too. There's something for everyone. For me personally, and the cougars that I know, when a man is 100% focused on your pleasure, there is nothing like it. I overheard you talking to JD Dallas over at Modern Male Lifestyle.
Yeah.
Just him, because he talks so much about the alpha male. And I have to tell you that even on the phone, you can hear in a man's voice if he's turned on by you. And that's so attractive. And I love that. But I think sometimes the alpha kind of gets confused and they start coming out like these aggressive sexual bullies. That's not alpha, right?
No.
And maybe they're afraid of being beta and they're trying to pretend they're alpha, but they got to go talk to JD. And then it could come over and talk to me. But so anyway, so the rookies, you got to be careful. You just take your time. This young man that I'm with, Sean, it took 5 months before we were sexual.
Wow.
No kidding. And so I didn't see him very often. He would show up at work for projects. You know, he was nice to me at first. I did not know he was flirting with me because I wasn't looking. And then slowly but surely, it came to a head, so to speak, on Valentine's Day. And I happened to be alone in the office, and he stopped in, and we had met in September, I think, somewhere around there. And he said, do you like chocolate? And I said, yeah. He said, I'll be right back. He went out and bought me Reese's peanut butter bits in a little orange bag. And he brought it back to me. And when he came in, I wasn't looking. I had my back turned. I was doing some stocking. And he came up to me and he kissed the back of my neck and handed me that chocolate. And everything changed. My heart dropped. And I began to accept his approaches. But think how patient. Now he's 45 years old. Maybe when he was 25, he would not have had that restraint. And also, he knew I was newly separated. And he did the cutest thing too. One day I said, how old are you anyway? And he said, 52. I said, you are not. And he goes, I was trying to think of an age that you would accept.
Yeah.
And so I said, no, how old are you really? He said 45. And it was still another 3 weeks after that kiss on the back of my neck before we got together.
Wow. I mean, this is great stuff, because I think the way cougars are portrayed in movies and on TV, you would never think that to go slow, because everyone portrays cougars. There's TV shows about cougars. You watch American Pie with Stifler's mom and, and things like this. And I don't think it's based on what you're saying. It's not really reality. But in reality, what you're saying is that the fastest way to a cougar's heart is through Reese's Pieces. No, I'm kidding. But through respect and being sincere. And this is advice that people probably would say don't do for a girl who's 25, because I've talked to a lot of people about meeting younger women, but it sounds like it's just a completely different world when you're dealing with older women, and respect and sincerity and kind of being very charming is the way to go about it.
Well, not only that, but they say there's studies done that women over 50 value fondling and cuddling and touching more than intercourse. Mm-hmm. They just do. And that's the thing. There's so much missing with that foreplay and the magic and the fascination with really letting that happen. I'm interrupting my list of 3 kinds of cougars, but I just want to make this point. The time between, and you know what, Sean, the cool thing is you can use these techniques with younger women too. It's a matter of connection because you really want her to connect with you. You want, if it's for a moment of high, hot sex, awesome. Or if it's for lasting, it's like if a girl feels like you care about her and for her, she wants to lean in and spend more time with you. And there isn't enough touch, and we're all touch deprived in our culture. You know, people are afraid to hug now because they'll get a germ, so people can be nervous about that. But let me talk to now. So we have our rookies, our first timers, and that's one issue. The second kind of cougar is a sex-only cougar. And it's just like how you mentioned, there are women who absolutely love to hook up. They write to me, and some of them disagree with me because of my stance on the classy cougar, which is just a different stance. And the women that love sex and they're ready for it, Tinder is an app that people are using to hook up. Actually, in Australia, where there are sex workers legally in parts of Australia, and they're saying that the sex business is going down because of the apps like Tinder and other apps where people are hooking up without paying for it. Sometimes I'll say to guys, listen, if you want a hooker, buy a hooker. If you want a woman to drop to her knees and worship at the throne of your cock, fantastic. Find one. If you want to find one that'll jump in the sack and have great sex with you in a second, they're out there. And maybe you're lucky and you'll find some that you don't have to pay for. But these are different kinds of sexual appetites. Now, for me personally, after I had my sex buddy come into my life and we meet occasionally, maybe once a month or so, no kidding, sometimes longer than that. Mm. And so in between times, I'm like, okay, well, now what do? I'm not promiscuous. I love sex. I love orgasm. I'm not promiscuous, though. I'm not one of the types that wants sex from anybody because of safety reasons and other reasons. So I went to Google and I Googled erotic chat because I was curious what was out there. Well, millions of hits pop up, of course. And I started to explore around the erotic chat network to see about connecting in cyber. Because as I like to say, cyber is safer. There's no physical contact. And believe me, women, look at 50 Shades of Grey, for Pete's sake. That movie is going to knock it out of the park when it comes out, as the books did. Because women crave erotica. And erotica is different than porn. Erotica is like porn light, more or less. Yeah. I jumped in and I started trying to find some erotic chat and partners that would have fun with me. But I ran into the same problem. Men that would just write. I mean, Sean, it's embarrassing. God love you guys. Bless you. I know you're trying to appeal to us. I know you're trying to get us to want sex with you, but the stuff that men write me is awful. Delete, 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 delete. And so the thing that I would say, even if you've got a woman who's just wants sex, that there's one thing you must avoid, and that is ew. You don't want to ever have a woman react with ew, because she'll delete you in 1 second.
Yeah, and I just want to say that it sounds like, from a male perspective, it's like you would think that, maybe this might work. But I think purely the fact that 99% of guys are approaching on this way online with very sexual messages, just not doing that and doing it like you said, like saying, hi, you're very beautiful, blah, 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 is kind of just separating yourself from the pack, and it's what works.
Yep. Tell me about it. I mean, it works for me, and I'm in high demand. Hundreds of men contact me. I don't date married men. I get a lot of married men, and that's part of why I started to write erotica, because men want to write erotica. So I have a website. It's called angelsays.yes.com, and Angel is my alter ego. I edit and write and publish kind of PG rated erotica. It's like you don't have to say the names, the gross names, the vernacular, and unless you're like your results. Now, so out of the 99% of the guys I delete. Every now and then one will catch my attention and I'll write to them and say, God love you, bless your heart. Does this work? How much action are you getting? And they always go, well, not so good. And then, that's why I started teaching this stuff, because I personally am a serial monogamist. I don't sleep with like tons of men all at the same time. But when I write, it's very erotic for me to write. It's orgasmic for me to write. And that way, I really want to help men, because honestly, if you knew how to write great erotica for your woman, it's super fun. I mean, name me one woman who doesn't love their cell phone. They're texting all the time. And you wrote a couple great articles on your site about texting, and I appreciate your putting that out there, because honestly, if you knew how to say certain things, you would have your woman watching her phone, waiting for you to text back, instead of cringing, oh no, not him again. Even if it is a sexual only liaison. You'll be surprised, because there's so few cubs that are charming out there. Yeah. But let me get to my third type of cougar. The third type of cougar is really more the kind that I am, because I am a little bit more experienced and I'm not a rookie anymore. But I'm looking for what I call relatively long-term relationship. Mm-hmm. And that means that I want, let's say I have a dog barking. That means that I want to get to know you. And I want them to get to know me. Read that profile. What is she like? If she's a golfer, then ask her, where's the coolest place you ever golfed? If she likes wine, ask her, do you like red or white? It's like being able to know her as a woman, as the person that is inside of that body that you want to ravish. And so those kinds of cougars, that's where I think the real value comes for both the cub and the cougar, because I have a lot to learn from a young man. I like seeing myself reflected in his eyes. I feel better about myself. The healing, honestly, the sexual healing I've had from this young man who really appreciates my body, but also treats me with kindness and humor. We have fun together. One of the first things that happened, Sean, in one of our first lovemaking, I'm getting so personal here, I hope you don't mind, but no, cool. In one of the first times we were together, it was so wonderful. And I said, I love you. And I went, wait, no, I didn't mean to say that. I'm sorry. I don't really love you. No. And he was so cute. He goes, shut up. I said, no, seriously, I just want you to know, not going to fall for you. And I made this whole speech because I know what I want, which is physical. But he was so great about it. He just hugged me and said, don't worry about it. Now, when I have sex with him, I'll say, I love having sex with you. And it is a loving time, even though it's temporary. Because when you're honoring someone's body and bringing that much pleasure to them, it is a very loving, sacred time, whether you're in a commitment or not. And I have to tell you that once a woman is filled up and satisfied and feeling delicious, pleasing her man is fabulous. And so the men that say, well, what about me? And why should I do all that for you? What about me? You know what? Delete. Because those men can go find their women. And maybe those are the asshole alpha guys. I don't know. But I attract the kind of men who see me as valued, not only for my body, but for my mind and how I've gotten through life to be 62, being able to take care of myself and enjoy my life. I would love to chat with a man your age and let you know what I needed back when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, so that you could be the kind of husband and make it work. So the relatively long term of it is very appropriate for certain people at certain times because they can come together, have a friendship relationship, enjoy one another, and then go on. Because it's not many 30-year-olds want to marry a 62-year-old. And that's fine. Some do. But it's almost guaranteed to be a short-term relationship while both move on to something that's more appropriate.
Yeah. So when I asked you first, what's the best way for a guy like me to meet a cougar, you went straight into the online website. So would you say that it's definitely better to approach older women online than, seeing a beautiful 50 to 60-year-old woman in the mall and approaching her there and seeing if she's divorced or whatnot?
I think that the online stuff is great for practice, and it's excellent for communicating back and forth and practicing your text skills, and very likely you could meet one. But I would love for men to approach me more out there in the world. And so I would say to you, I love when you had Kezia on, and she said that wonderful thing, I know this is random, but love that. I love that, because you honestly, Sean, you could come up, you're adorable, I'm looking at your picture. You could come up to me at my Starbucks and you could say, I know this is random, but, and that would work for me. So I would say, do a ring check, look at that left hand. If there's no ring on there, I go right on up and say, the worst thing that can happen is they could say, no, I'm dating someone, or I'm not interested. But I find it so flattering when younger men are interested in me. Now, at first, I don't believe it. Because I figure they think I'm that second kind of cougar and they just want to have quick sex. Let's go to a hotel room. So I might dodge a little bit. But that's what I'm saying. If you are savvy and you come on with true interest in her as a woman, not just a sex object, I would love to be approached more out there. In fact, I have to say my goal for 2015, what I'm planning to do personally, is to approach more men, because I don't have good luck on the dating sites. And I'm thinking, when I do see a man that's attractive to me, and by eye contact, right, that I really want to have the courage to go up to him too, whatever his age is, and say, and I know this is really random, but I couldn't help but noticing that you're attractive, whatever I want to say, and ask if he would want to have coffee with me. Because we are surrounded by people every day that, who knows, one of them might be a partner. I like the online stuff for the practice. It's a great practice for connecting. But if I support going out and approaching older women. And again, as long as your motivation is clear, and not every man wants to please women, Sean, I understand that. Not every man finds it exciting to bring sexual pleasure to a woman. And that's okay. It's just that for certain women, the sooner that they know that's true, the more clarity you'll have on whether that's the right woman for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can say from experience, like I told you, I've only ever approached two older women. They were both, I would say probably 45 years old, and they were both beautiful. It was the best responses that I've had from any girls, because usually if you approach in a sincere way to anyone and you tell them, hey, this is random, I know, but I just saw you and I had to tell you how incredible you look, you're going to get a good response no matter what, unless you are just very new and very nervous and they can tell. But once you get past the nerves, you're going to get a good response. But from the older woman, even when she was married, the first one was married, she was thrilled. Like, I could tell that I made her day. She gave me a hug, and she was like, if I wasn't married, I would definitely,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the next woman wasn't married. She was divorced, and it was a great 15-minute conversation. I was actually holding her hand. She took my number, but she never used it. I mean, maybe she chickened out, who knows, but I can tell that you guys are very receptive to that, like, genuine, sincere approach. So don't be scared to go out and try it.
Yep, I would say so, because I do think that once it is a little bit, women do resist the younger guy at first, because it's taboo still. I mean, I was just researching this morning, and even though we are in 2014, there's still society looks down on sexually liberated women, and they look down on women dating younger guys. And so you got to remember that you're a cougar, your woman is living in that pond, with all that disapproval. But once they realize that a young guy at your age, the wisdom and sense of presence that you have is sincere, and that you're not out just for a quick roll in the hay, then I don't like to overuse the word healing, but it is good for an ego, for a woman that's been through some tough things, to just be adored by somebody.
Yeah.
And even if it's just short term, and I think that's part of what, as a young guy, maybe that's something you guys can think about expressing to your woman at some point, that you realize this is short term. You realize this is probably not a last forever thing.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. Go ahead, you go.
But that you're utterly fascinated by her.
That's what I wanted to ask you. So, I mean, approaching very sexually is not the best way to go. So when you approach sincere and genuine, and as we've been talking about, how and when do you make your intent clear that you don't want a serious relationship, because she probably doesn't want a serious relationship, and you are looking for, a meet once in a while, get to know each other, beautiful sexual relationship? And how do you do that?
Well, I find that the guys have been pretty responsive, like in the online community, when I do say, when they come on and I say I'm not interested in one night encounters, they go, okay, see ya, good luck and have fun. So I think direct is very, very good. For me, it has worked. And so if you're fascinated by a woman, there are some things. I have 5 things that I can say. So if you guys want to grab a pencil, let me give you 5 tips on how to it's not manipulate, but it's to maneuver. I mean, you figure, like, think about parallel parking, for example. You have to maneuver that car into the spot. Are you manipulating it into the spot? Well, maybe. But you do have to be smart when you're dealing with a woman, and particularly a woman that's quite a bit older. Oh, one tip, Sean, I will give you. If you're a new cub, if you have never tried dating an older woman, I definitely would try to stick with like 10 years older than you.
Okay.
Because I find that when you leap to 30 years older than you, you're biting off more than you can chew, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so I would definitely, and plus a woman 10 years older than you, or maybe 15, is definitely going to be more attractive. There's less resistance. Now, if you're 25 and you want to date a 62-year-old, if you, darling self, came up to me and said something nice, I probably would have coffee with you, and then we would have to see from there. But that's just a good tip. Try to pick one 10 to 15 years older at first.
Okay.
But the first thing is that seduction is very important. And in your intro, you mentioned that I want to teach the art of seduction. I felt so bad for the 99% of cubs that I delete every day. I just started writing about it. And that's what the Cougar Cub Academy is. That's on my Facebook page. But I just share resources, including your stuff there, just to continually to feed cubs the things that they need. Seduction is not... here's, pull down the sheets, hop in. What seduction is it's like a mystery. What is it in her that you can tap into to make her want more? That's what seduction is. And it comes like from reading her profile. Read in there some detail, pick out a detail, and choose to get to know why that woman is connected to that. Whether it's, I read one this morning, she likes galleries and bookstores. There you go. Where do you like to go? What's your favorite author? Seduction is not about sex. Seduction is about connection. So that's it having a mindset, an intention that you want to be able to seduce in that way. Now, are there people out there that seduce and take you to bed and that's all they want is that one night? Yes. But true seduction is deeper than that and makes you want to lean in. And I do teach some stuff on how to text, similar to what you do. And that's a seduction with text is really magical. The second tip is subtlety. You have to be subtle. It's if you feel, if there's any intuitive feeling, oh, this might be a little too much, it is. So when you're communicating, especially with text and email, read through it yourself and ask yourself, is there a chance she could be offended? And if there is, back off. I mean, it's one thing to say, your boobs are beautiful. And it's another thing to say, I can't believe how great you look for somebody your age. How old are you really?
Yeah.
You know, is that picture of you real? You know, so ask questions, but be subtle, you know, take away. And also it's just the idea of like being PG rated. Like write an email or a text to her and then think, is this PG? And then make it PG, because we love that stuff. We love innuendo and the sexual banter that's not really sexual. Which brings us to the next tip: sensual, not sexual. Sensual is different. Sensual is the warm bubble bath. And I mean, I can't tell you, Sean, the guys, you know what? If you write to me and say, you know, in these text exchanges, by the way, because I do have cyber sex with certain people and I enjoy it because I'm alone and it's a cyber partner, and it's like any woman with erotica and some good sex toys, some really cool things can happen at home. And there's, I do have a sample. You can go to cybersexsample.com and it'll give you an exchange that actually happened to me. And the men that are smart, they say to me, they text, can I pour you a glass of wine? Would you like me to rub your shoulders? Those are the men I'm like, yeah, because it's like a thirsty in the desert, you know, when the rest of them are throwing their private parts on the table for me to enjoy. I don't want any of that. And I'll tell them, get that out of my face. So it's like sensual. You know, if I were there right now, I would be running my index finger along your hairline.
Yeah.
If I were there right now, I would put my finger under your chin and lift it up, lift your face to give you a kiss. I mean, hello, this is just like, you know, it's like not even sexy.
No, yeah, but it's working on me right now.
And the next one is number 4 is satisfaction. Satisfaction, ladies first. I mean, if two things on this. Number 1, I think all of us need to take responsibility for our own orgasm, for our own sexual pleasure. If I'm in a sexual encounter, my orgasm, my level of pleasure is up to me. How much I allow or how much my body can release. It's not the man who's doing it to me. You're having a sexual occasion, it's your responsibility to take care of yourself sexually. If something I'm doing is turning you off, certainly I want to know it. But the whole idea of solo sex and being able to care for yourself is very refreshing to a cougar, because it's not my responsibility if you get off. It's not. You have 2 good hands and some good erotica and some nice cyber chat. Take care of it. Because when you are taking care of you and I am taking care of me, we can be great sexual partners without improperly needing the other person. A huge aha for me that I came to later in life. So not every cub is going to be good for me, because some cubs are very self-focused and it's about their own orgasm and they want me to do that. Whereas I will really warm up to a man who knows how to put a lady first. And so that's a real big success tip. And anybody, if that fails, you can write to me and let me know. And the next thing is slow and steady. Remember that my sex buddy took time with me, and it was just how life unfolded. But we women, we do kind of get the idea that we have a 3-date window with you guys before we have to have sex. It's like, if we go out, we will give you 3, we'll go out 3 times and see if there's a spark. And generally speaking, it kind of works. If no spark happens, a lot of guys ghost or disappear. And that's a whole different talk. We could talk about ghosting. But where guys will go out with you 3 times and disappear if you don't want to have sex with them. So that's another thing for you guys to know. If you're really fascinated by this woman, don't give up. Don't give up. She may be one of those rookie cougars. She's been burnt by love and she's afraid to trust. But if you have some chemistry there and she fascinates you, hang in there, because it could very well be worth it. And the conversation you have about life, one of the things is the great tip if you go out on a date and it's not working out very good, you meet her. On one other point too, I always recommend that you meet your woman, if it's online, meet her as soon as possible. Meet her before you get her phone number. because if there's no chemistry, you want to know it immediately. It's too easy to have fake chemistry online. So, and so sometimes I'm meeting with a guy, there's zero connection. One guy I met with looked just like my ex. I thought, I can't date you. I'm sorry. You're a nice man, but you look like my ex. So then I asked him, how's online dating been for you? I asked dating questions. It's a great way to pass what could have been, a bad coffee. You just say, have you met any great guys? And then when two people are talking about the successes and failures of being single and dating, you get a lot of laughs.
Yeah, it's a great tip. And I love those 5 steps. And for the sexual part, I'm actually interviewing Sasha Cobra in January. I don't know if you know who she is, but she's an amazing sexual teacher and sexual healer. So hopefully she'll be able to guide listeners on the path to, really becoming one with their sexuality and pleasing a woman, because what she does is just, all her stuff's incredible. So, if you're interested in that, make sure you keep checking out our podcast and subscribe. But what I wanted to ask you was, this is all really incredible stuff. And if I can recap myself, I think using the online or meeting her in person, being genuine and sincere and seducing her with your, caring about her and showing genuine interest and, things like that, and being very subtle about your intentions, and then taking her out. When do you think it's an appropriate time, or would it just happen naturally for things to escalate sexually on a date 1, 2, or 3?
Okay, I think that that's great. That's excellent. I went out with a 31-year-old person recently, and we had our 3-date thing. And one of the mistakes he made was he kept telling me how good he was sexually, and God love him. He's like, I'm really good, and that turned me off. It was not the way to go. And I think that that's where one of the things that your listeners can do is tune into JD Dallas's stuff, because the whole alpha male thing is awesome, and there's no sense reinventing the wheel because he says it right. But I think that there's stuff like just as simple as touching her arm. There's ways that you can announce your interest in her that is extremely subtle. You don't want to talk about how much you want to layer or that you want to be blown. You don't want, that's just no.
Yeah.
Get it off the table. It's like, you could say things like, what my guy said to me, he said, it looks like you need to be cuddled. And when he said that to me, I went, you're right. And so the idea of just connecting and comforting and just keep connecting, eye contact, keep asking her about herself, talk to her, let her talk to you.
Yeah. And if you do it right, then eventually, she's going to invite you back to her place for a drink or for a coffee, right. And it's going to happen naturally. You don't have to force it.
Right. And she'll reach out and touch you. That's the thing. She will reach out and touch you. She will do those things like play with her hair, She'll tilt her head. She'll lick her lips. There's things, and it sounds like Sasha's going to be awesome at sharing some of these things and how to watch.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to her.
Yeah, from when a woman gets turned on. But the thing is, if you, I need to, I'm going to write an article about that for the site, because I think what you're asking is a really good sign, because you don't want to move too quickly and you want to watch for her responses. But I think eye contact is just so key, because the heart is right behind the eyes, and she'll feel your desire and your connection. Is she just if she's a rookie cougar, she just won't trust it. See, because it's how could you really like me? I went through a lot of that until this guy convinced me by his behavior. He was just cute and funny. I mean, even to go out and buy me, he didn't buy me a pretty box of candy with a ribbon on it. He just bought me a candy bar. It was endearing.
Yeah. This is incredible stuff. I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything, and to bring it full circle and to really put the icing on the cake, what are the best websites that aren't filled with a whole bunch of bots and fake stuff, and maybe they're free, maybe they're not? What's your opinion?
Well, I do. I thank you. And that's a really good comment about the bots and stuff and who's a
I hate
person.
that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I do. This morning I was on seekingcougars.com, and that's connected to a larger site that's been around for about 10 years. One of the things I like to do is to check the bottom of the site, like wheel all the way down when you're looking at a Cougar site and see how old the website is. Because if they've only been around since 2011, you probably want to move on to someone else. And also, I've had good success. I like the guys that I've met on Seeking Cougars. CougarLife.com is another one, but that one I use. But honestly, most of it's all delete. And mostly I wish in a way that I don't want to come across as like saying you guys don't know anything, but you guys don't know anything, and occasionally I'll reach out and invite them to join the academy or just come and get some information. Because the irony is there's people like me, women who love sex, who really want to be pleased and are ready to have sex with men. And then there's men out there who really want to have sex with an older woman and they are not connecting. So I would say don't give up. If you run into a dating site that isn't satisfactory for you, then go ahead and move on. A lot of them do have payment, and they'll do it monthly, so it won't cost you too much to hop in, but you'll get a feel right away for whether the women are real or not. And there's a lot of women out there that do dress really slutty, and they show a lot. They're almost like, they're just, what do you call it, exhibitionists, and they're out there, and that would be just right for certain men. So try not to judge. And again, you should be able to tell by asking a few questions of her if she's somebody that you would be interested in.
Yeah, this has been so eye-opening. It really has. And I'm so grateful for you sharing all these tips, because now I think everyone who listens to this is going to be in that top 1% of guys if they're interested in finding someone older than them for just friends with benefits style stuff. They're going to be able to avoid all those mistakes that everyone else is making and see success, not be wasting their money. So thank you so much.
You're sure welcome, and I appreciate it. And I do hope for the Cougars that are out there that they will be benefit to this service that you're providing, that there is a way for young men who are good men, there's integrity in place because it's consenting adults. And as long as one of the things you had mentioned very early in this conversation about how to express yourself to what you want, if you're interested in just sexual play or in building something relatively long term. And honestly, from a Cougar's perspective, from a mature woman, your frankness and ability to be direct about that saves a lot of time. And I would never be offended, never, to have somebody say, I love sex with strangers. Is that something you like? And I say, no, I need to know my man, and I need to know that he knows me. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And you're going to be writing, articles for MenProvement. So if you guys like Katherine's stuff, there's going to be a lot of great articles on, small details that she's talked about here. If you can check out MenProvement.com, where can men find more of your stuff and more about you, and even contact you if they wanted to work with you?
Absolutely. You can contact me at Katherine, that's CATHERINE, at breakupcandy.com. I've done a lot of work in the breakup world with both men and women, and I'm finding that these sexual relationships can be quite healing for breakups. Again, that can be a little controversial and needs to be handled with kid gloves, but I would be delighted to take any questions that people have at Katherine at breakupcandy.com. And then if you're interested too and you want to check out the world of my PG-rated erotica and some of the work I have, you can check that out at angelsays.yes.com.
That's great. Thank you so much, Katherine. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome, Sean. And hey, if you're in San Diego, hit me up for coffee, would you?
Absolutely, I will. If you guys enjoyed this show, then get ready for an even better podcast in the new year. I love the podcast that we've done so far, and I love the support that all you have given us on Twitter and through emails. So I'm really going to step it up and get the absolute best guests to help you guys become the best men you can possibly be. If you want me to talk about or interview someone specifically or talk about a specific subject, email me at sean@menprovement.com and let me know what it is. And tell your friends about this podcast. If there's an episode that you think someone would really be interested in, send it to them. And you can CC me if you want to, because I love to see what you guys are up to. And coming in January, I have interviews with Sasha Cobra that's going to help you become the most sexually experienced man that she has ever come across. And this is incredible. It's going to separate you from so many men, and you're going to be that guy that women talk about who's the sexual god. Then I have interviews with Thomas from Boy Toy Story. We're going to talk about how he went from socially anxious to one of the most prolific men alive, living an incredible life. And there's going to be a lot more. So subscribe on iTunes and just keep enjoying the show, and head to menprovement.com, get your free starter kit, and say what's up, and never stop improving.